Right. So, as many regular viewers will know, I have a bit of a bee in my bonnet when it comes to attacks on the disabled. I'm an unpaid carer. Life has been made stupidly hard for families like mine with disabled family members in them. It's why I started making these videos. It's why I still make them to this day, videos like this one. And I'm incredibly grateful to all those who have supported me to keep going, because actually, when it comes down to it, if I were to boil my personal experiences down to one defining trigger moment that gave birth to this entire enterprise, it would be the war on the disabled, first enacted by the original Dr. Death, Ian Duncan Smith, with his work will set you free mentality, when in reality, Tory reforms to out-of-work benefits, sickness benefits, disability benefits have driven people into their graves. The work capability assessment that decides whether you can afford to live or not, the tick box exercise conducted by an outsourcing company more often than not, and equally more often than not conducted by somebody without the foggiest idea about your particular health conditions or disability, most importantly, how they affect you. A faceless somebody further up the food chain then makes a decision based on the report sent by said assessor, and you hope to God the odds fall in your favour. For too many, it proved not to be the case. For too many, they were driven to take their own lives, or the decision proved fatal in and of itself. The other side of it is the sanctions regime, of course. The example I always remember is the former soldier David Clapson, who died after missing an appointment at the Jobcentre. A diabetic, he couldn't afford to keep his fridge on, the electric was too much for his insulin, and he died of diabetic ketoacidosis. He had just £3 in the bank account, and his cupboard contained next to sod all. I suppose the reason this one sticks in my mind is because he too was a carer for his mother. When she was put in a home, the state completely failed him. This country for the long-term sick and disabled is like the Hunger Games. It could easily have been me there, or any number of other carers across this country in his position. So many of us in this country caring for loved ones unable to work. This video making of mine began as a hobby and has expanded to potentially becoming a career for me now in the situation we're in. Such is the support I've had. But that makes me exceptionally lucky, and I'm grateful to everyone who just watches and shares this, let alone anything else, because it all helps me and my family keep on keeping on. But the reason I've begun this video in the manner I have this time is because the Tories are again coming for families like mine and so many others. The war on the disabled is beginning again. The culture war against migrants hasn't quite resonated as the Tories hope, presumably, so they need to start hating on someone else to win voters over, because hate is what they think attracts their voters. And frankly, if it's the sort of thing that brings your vote to the Tories, then I quite honestly pity you. They need to start hating on someone else, and the broken records like they are, it's rinse and repeat time again. Now, we kind of knew something was in the offing a little while back when the announcement came back in March that work capability assessments were finally being scrapped, completely unfit for purpose as they are, but not until 2026. So, but would be independent, so it would be completely dependent on the Tories staying in power, naturally. Seems a bit of a stretch looking at the polls at the moment. Labour have no plans to abolish the testing regime, abject lethal failure as it has been, so little hope things would be much different with them in charge. The plan at the moment, though, is to make claiming out-of-work sickness benefits even harder. How that is going to be done is going to be revealed this week. But the plan a few months ago, when these ideas were being floated about and outlined and bits and pieces were being leaked to the press, was to scrap the work capability assessment and lump being unable to work in with personal independence payment. By doing that, in other words, the government would only deem you unfit for work if you have a recognised disability. Why would they do this? Well, here's a thought. There's massive pandemic failure is a driving factor for this. The Tories' massive failure to get a handle on this. Millions of people have been signed off work due to contracting COVID, and large numbers of these have been left suffering with long COVID, which is not considered a disability, but a long-term sickness issue. This change would, in effect, reclassify those with long COVID and leave them at risk of sanction if they don't start looking for work again. Surely that's the obvious conclusion if you're going to lump the work capability assessment in with being in receipt of PIP. There will also apparently be new emphasis on trying to find work from home opportunities and work coaches to help those signed off with mental health issues find work they can do. Now, I'm all for people finding and being supported into work they can do, as long as work pays, of course, if this comes to pass as implied. But who trusts the Tories to do that with a number of people who have died thanks to their actions? Working from home as I do, doing this, making videos, enormously boosts my mental health well-being too. People often forget how carers themselves get affected. So I appreciate the intent as being sold to us, but I don't believe it'll be delivered that way, both because of the Tories' track record and the fact support going forwards will hinge on whether you are disabled or not. Many will not be. They will be long-term sick, will have their health then put at risk by this. And the new DWP Chief Mel Stride can talk about his belief in the power of work to transform people's lives. Well, that's all very much work will set you free again mentality and mantra. And we saw what happened when Ian Duncan Smith sang that same tune. He didn't get called Dr. Death for nothing. Is Mel Stride now going to take that crown? On top of the noises coming from the DWP on this issue, though, Chancellor of the Exchequer Jeremy Hunt has also weighed in. Less in a manner of saying, we want to support you back into work or else, but more that disabled and long-term sick people are hurting the economy. Or at least this is certainly the note the down market and eternally dreadful Daily Mail has struck, bringing up the topic of sickness benefit reforms too, in conjunction with the spectre of rising inflation. The Treasury is expecting inflation to rise back above 7% this month, so the Fail is bleating about sickness benefit reforms in relation to the government having to tighten its belt. Let's pay for all of this woe on the backs of the long-term sick and disabled yet again. Oh, woe is we, as tax cuts won't be coming with this news, but hurrah! Let's attack the disabled again, because good old Mel Stride is going to get those shirkers turned back into workers again to get the benefit bill down and stop those people costing hard-working taxpayers so much of their cash. We know the headlines, we know the mantra, we know it's rubbish, we've seen it all before, we've read it before. Red meat stuff for frothing Conservatives, media pressure on the government to be as harsh as possible. It sold so many papers before when the disabled were dying, didn't it? Let's have some more of that, they think. Whether you get any help now is whether or not you successfully passed an assessor's tick box exercise. What this will amount to, I'm certain, will be a change to the tick box form and nothing more. It'll still be a tick box exercise. Just another way to boot as many more people off the support, the safety net that's supposed to be there for all of us, as they can, to seek work that may not exist, that they might be able to do in some kind of fantasy Tory world. But it's not real life. And when the Tories went down this road before, people lost their lives. And that was reality. Their driver is to cut the social security bill, not help people, because they're Tories. And they only ever help themselves. What are your thoughts on this? Are you backing the government reforms here, or do you think it's an excuse to absolve themselves of responsibility again for those whose health has been devastated long-term by their mishandling of the pandemic? Join in the conversation, leave a comment and have your say. Thanks for watching. I hope you found the video useful. Please like, share and subscribe if you did. More content out daily. Meanwhile, here's a video recommendation where the media attacks on the disabled, well, they've never really gone away. One notable example quite recently came from Jeremy Vine, who ended up on the receiving end of a substantial social media rinsing from disability campaigners. And, well, I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.